Silent sentinels. The signal. Commander Elena Reyes squinted at the holographic display floating above the bridge's central console. The anomalous energy signature pulsed with an eerie regularity that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand at attention. "Run the analysis again, Dr. Katri," she ordered, her voice steady despite the uneasiness growing in her gut. Dr. Anya Katri, the Hyperion's chief science officer, nodded and tapped a series of commands into her station. Her dark eyes narrowed in concentration as the data streamed across her screen. "Same result, Commander. The signal doesn't match any known pattern in our database, human or otherwise." Katri's fingers danced across the interface. "It's artificially generated, that much is certain. But the technology, it's like nothing we've ever encountered." Elena turned to her navigation officer. "Lieutenant Park, how far off our scheduled route would we have to deviate to investigate?" Lieutenant Ji-hun Park calculated briefly. "Approximately 3 days at standard propulsion, Commander. That would put us behind on our delivery schedule to Proxima Station by nearly a week." First Officer Marcus Chen cleared his throat. "Commander, Frontier Exploration's protocols are clear. We're not authorized to investigate unscheduled anomalies without prior approval from Central Command, especially when it jeopardizes our primary mission objectives." Elena nodded, acknowledging the protocol. The Hyperion was primarily a supply vessel, tasked with delivering essential medical equipment to the outer colonies, but she hadn't joined the Frontier Exploration Corps to blindly follow protocols when the unknown beckoned. "I understand the protocol, Marcus," she said, addressing her XO by his first name, a small indication that this was more than just a procedural discussion. "But this signal, it's deliberate, mathematically precise. Someone or something put it there, wanting it to be found." Security Chief Darian Volkov leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the tactical display. "Or it's a trap," he said bluntly, Russian accent thickening as it always did when he was concerned. "Pirates have been getting more sophisticated in this sector." Elena considered this. Volkov's instincts had saved them more than once in the 5 years they'd served together. "What's your assessment of the risk, Chief?" Volkov shrugged his broad shoulders. "Without more information, impossible to say. But if we go in cautious, weapons hot, and shields at maximum, we can minimize our exposure." Elena made her decision. "Lieutenant Park, plot a course to the signal source. Dr. Katri, continue analyzing the pattern. I want to know if it contains any decodable information. First Officer Chen, log my decision and prepare a justification report for Central Command." She turned to her communications officer. "Lieutenant Rahman, send a message to Proxima Station, informing them of our delay. Cite technical difficulties. I'll take responsibility for the misdirection later." As the crew moved to execute her orders, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this decision would mark a turning point. Not just for her career, but perhaps for humanity itself. 3 days later, the Hyperion dropped out of FTL on the edge of an uncharted star system. A dying red dwarf cast a bloody glow over the scene, its weak light barely illuminating a handful of rocky planetoids circling at various distances. "Signal source identified," Dr. Capri announced. "It's coming from the third planetoid, approximately 600 kilometers in diameter. No atmosphere. Surface temperature -210 Celsius. Life signs?" Elena asked, though she already suspected the answer. "None detected, Commander. But there's definitely an artificial structure on the surface, and it's the source of our signal." Elena stood from her command chair. "Put it on screen." The main view screen shifted to show a desolate, cratered landscape. In the center of the image stood an oddly symmetric protrusion from the surface, a perfect black obelisk that seemed to absorb the reddish light rather than reflect it. "Magnify," Elena ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing more details. The obelisk's surface wasn't completely smooth as it had first appeared. Intricate patterns covered its entire surface, reminiscent of circuit pathways, but far more complex. "Dimensions?" Elena asked, unable to tear her eyes from the structure. The obelisk stands approximately 50 meters tall, 15 meters wide at the base, tapering to 5 meters at the top. Lieutenant Park reported. Scans cannot penetrate its surface to determine internal structure, if any exists. The signal, Elena prompted, emanating from the structure itself, confirmed Dr. Captry. The pattern has changed since we entered the system. It's accelerating. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. Accelerating how? Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. Accelerating how? The intervals between pulses are decreasing at a geometric rate. If this continues, the pulses will become continuous in approximately 12 minutes. First Officer Chen moved to Elena's side. Commander, I recommend we maintain our distance. We've confirmed the signal source. We can report our findings and let a dedicated research vessel take it from here. Elena understood his caution, but something compelled her to press forward. This discovery could redefine humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Prepare a landing team, she decided. Myself, Dr. Captry, Chief Volkov, and engineering specialist Torres. We'll take Shuttle 2 down for a closer look. Commander, Chen protested. Regulations clearly state. I'm well aware of the regulations, First Officer. Elena interrupted, her tone leaving no room for debate. You'll have command while we're on the surface. If anything goes wrong, your priority is the safety of the Hyperion and its crew. Is that understood? Chen's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Yes, Commander. The shuttle descended through the vacuum toward the barren planetoid, the black obelisk growing larger in the forward viewport. Up close, the structure seemed even more impossible, its edges too perfect, its surface unmarked by the micrometeorite impacts that had pockmarked everything else on the planetoid surface. How old do you think it is? Elena asked as Dr. Captry continued to run scans from the shuttle's science station. Based on the accumulated dust at its base and the erosion patterns of the surrounding terrain. Captry paused. My preliminary estimate would be at least 10 million years. Specialist Torres whistled. 10 million years and still broadcasting. That's some power source. The shuttle touched down approximately 100 meters from the obelisk. The team donned their environmental suits, standard procedure for non-atmospheric exploration, and cycled through the airlock. Elena was the first to set foot on the planetoid surface, the gravity only about 1/8 of Earth's. Move carefully, she instructed over the comm. Stay in visual contact at all times. They approached the obelisk with measured steps, instruments recording every possible detail. As they drew closer, Elena noticed that the patterns on its surface seemed to shift subtly, as if responding to their presence. Are you seeing this? She asked, pointing. Yes, Dr. Captry confirmed, her voice hushed with awe despite coming through the suit's comm system. The patterns are changing, reconfiguring themselves. Chief Volkov moved his hand toward the weapon at his hip, a nervous habit rather than an indication he planned to draw it. I come like this, Commander. Elena understood his concern, but they'd come too far to turn back now. When they reached the base of the obelisk, she noticed something they hadn't been able to see from a distance, a slight indentation in the otherwise seamless surface, roughly at chest height. It looks like, she began. A handprint. Torres finished. A 5-fingered handprint. The implications weren't lost on any of them. Whatever had created this structure had appendages remarkably similar to human hands, or had designed it specifically for beings with human-like hands to interact with. Dr. Captry ran her scanner over the indentation. The material composition in this section is different from the rest of the structure. It appears to be designed as an interface of some kind. Elena stared at the handprint. It was almost certainly a mechanism to activate or control the obelisk. It was also almost certainly dangerous to use it without understanding its purpose. Recommendations, she asked, looking at each member of her team. We should set up remote monitoring equipment and return to the ship, Volkov said immediately. Torres shrugged. We could try a mechanical proxy. Use one of the robotic arms from the shuttle to apply pressure to the panel. The pattern matching the indentation would be difficult to replicate mechanically, Dr. Captry pointed out, and the variations in the surface pattern suggest this technology responds to specific biological inputs. A mechanical proxy might not trigger the intended response. Alina considered her options. Central Command would want them to retreat, document everything, and wait for specialists. But that could take months, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was meant for them, for humanity, at this specific moment. I'm going to try it, she decided. Commander, I strongly advise against, Volkov began. Noted, Chief. Alina cut him off. All of you, return to minimum safe distance. If anything happens to me, return to the ship immediately. The team reluctantly backed away. Alina took a deep breath, watching the oxygen level indicator on her HUD tick down slightly with the action. Then, slowly, deliberately, she raised her right hand and placed it in the indentation. The fit was perfect. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she felt a warmth spreading through her glove, followed by a vibration that traveled up her arm and seemed to resonate through her entire body. The patterns on the obelisk's surface began to flow like liquid, converging toward her hand. Commander, your vitals are spiking. Dr. Captry's alarmed voice came through the comm. Alina couldn't respond. Her vision blurred, then cleared to reveal not the barren landscape of the planetoid, but what seemed to be a vast star map. Points of light shifted and moved around her, as if she were standing in the center of a three-dimensional star chart. A voice, or perhaps not a voice, but concepts forming directly in her mind, began to communicate. Criteria met. Authentication accepted. Warning protocol initiated. Warning about what? Alina managed to ask, unsure if she was speaking aloud or merely thinking the words. They are coming. The harvesters. The world eaters. This beacon was placed to warn of their awakening. Images flashed through Alina's mind. Massive ships shaped like skeletal hands, stripping entire planets of resources in minutes. Civilizations falling, stars going dark. Your kind has been identified. Your world's marked. The awakening has begun. Who are you? Alina demanded. Why warn us if it's too late? We were the Sentinels. We failed. But the seed of resistance remains. In the seventh system of the spiral arm, seek the forge. It is your only hope. The connection broke suddenly. Alina gasped as her awareness slammed back into her body. She stumbled backward, nearly falling in the low gravity, her hand tingling painfully. Commander, Volkov was at her side, steadying her. Are you all right? Before she could answer, the ground beneath them trembled. The obelisk's patterns now pulsed with intense light, and a beam shot upward from its peak into space. Back to the shuttle. Now, Alina ordered, finding her voice. They half ran, half bounded across the rocky surface. As they reached the shuttle, Dr. Captry looked back and gasped. Commander, look. Alina turned. The obelisk was changing, its perfect geometric form distorting as sections of it separated and began to orbit around its core. The beam it projected into space widened. Get us out of here, Torres, Alina shouted as they sealed the airlock. The shuttle lifted off, engines straining as Torres pushed them to full power. As they ascended, Alina watched through the viewport as the obelisk completely disassembled itself, its components forming an intricate, spinning array that continued to broadcast its signal into deep space. Hyperion, this is Commander Reyes, she called over the comm. Prepare for immediate departure, maximum speed. Commander, Chen's confused voice replied. What's happening? The obelisk was a beacon. Alina explained tersely. A warning system, and we just activated it. The shuttle docked with the Hyperion in record time. As Alina rushed onto the bridge, the ship's sensors began detecting massive distortions in space approximately 2 light minutes from their position. What are we looking at? She demanded. Spatial anomalies, Park reported. his voice tight, like nothing I've ever seen. There, opening. On the view screen, space itself seemed to tear open, revealing swirling vortices of impossible colors. And through these rifts, massive shapes began to emerge, skeletal frameworks of dark metal that somehow seemed both mechanical and organic at once. The leading vessel dwarfed the Hyperion like a whale beside a minnow. Its shape resembled an enormous hand with elongated fingers, each segment bristling with technology beyond human understanding. Behind it came another, then another, until 7 of the monstrous ships had entered normal space. They matched the images from your vision, Commander, Dr. Katri confirmed, looking up from her scans of Alina's neural activity. Get us out of here, Lieutenant Park, Alina ordered. Maximum FTL. Direct course to Earth. The nearest jump point is still 20 minutes away at full thrust, Park warned. They're scanning us, Chatri reported, her voice trembling slightly. Extremely powerful energy signatures focusing on our position. Alina made a split-second decision. Emergency protocols. Dump all non-essential data to the beacon drone. Launch it on a different vector from our escape route. Chen immediately understood. Setting up the data package now, Commander. Including your neural scan recordings and all sensor data of the artifact. And these vessels. They're moving toward us, Volkov reported from Tactical. Estimated intercept in 17 minutes. Too close. They wouldn't reach the jump point in time. Divert power from life support to engines, Alina ordered. Give us everything we've got. The Hyperion surged forward, its hull creaking under stresses it wasn't designed to withstand. The massive alien vessels adjusted course, obviously in pursuit. Beacon drone ready, Chen reported. Launch it, Alina commanded, and transmit an emergency signal to any Earth forces in range. Authorization code Reyes Omega 7. Message: First contact scenario hostile. Extreme threat level. Recommend immediate fleet mobilization. The small drone shot away from the Hyperion, carrying copies of everything they'd learned. Alina could only hope it would reach human space before these world eaters. Commander, Park called out, voice tight with controlled panic. One of them is accelerating. It will intercept us before we reach the jump point. On the view screen, one of the skeletal ships broke formation, surging toward them with impossible speed for its size. Alina watched it approach, mind racing through options that dwindled with each passing second. Prepare to jettison the medical supplies, she finally ordered. Maybe they'll stop to investigate. Commander, Katri suddenly exclaimed. I'm detecting another spatial anomaly forming, directly ahead of us. Alina's heart sank. They were being cut off. But as the new rift opened, something unexpected emerged. Not another of the skeletal harvesters, but a sleek vessel of unfamiliar design, its hull gleaming with opalescent light. They're transmitting, Raman reported from communications. Audio only, universal translator is struggling. But I think I have it. A voice filled the bridge, melodic despite the obvious urgency in its tone. Human vessel, alter course to match ours. We are the preservers. We have fought the harvesters for eons. Follow us to safety. Alina hesitated only a moment. Matched their course, Lieutenant Park. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. As the Hyperion changed direction, the mysterious vessel projected some kind of energy field that enveloped both ships. The pursuing harvester vessel fired, a lance of violet energy that should have vaporized them instantly, but the beam diffracted around the energy bubble. Hold on, Alina shouted as their new ally accelerated suddenly, pulling the Hyperion along in its wake. The stars blurred around them in a way that didn't match any FTL travel Alina had experienced. The bridge displays flickered and died, then returned showing completely unfamiliar star patterns. Where are we? Alina asked, though she knew no one on her crew could answer. The alien voice returned. Safe, for the moment. Your species has been noticed by the greatest threat this galaxy has ever known. The war you never knew existed has found you at last. Elena looked around at her crew, their faces showing fear, confusion, but also determination. Whatever was coming, humanity would face it standing. "Then tell us what we need to know," she replied firmly. "Tell us how to fight." Silent Sentinels. The Last Stand. Admiral Sofia Santiago stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's Unified Defense Council, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of the approaching Harvester fleet. 63 days had passed since the Hyperion's emergency beacon had reached Earth, carrying Commander Reyes' warning and the terrifying footage of the skeletal World Eaters. "The Preserver's intelligence has been confirmed by our long-range scouts," Santiago reported. "The main Harvester Armada will reach the outer Sol system in approximately 72 hours. Conservative estimates put their numbers at over 300 vessels." General Quain Okafor of the African Confederation leaned forward. "And our own forces. 127 capital ships, 400 support vessels, and the orbital defense platforms around Earth, Mars, and the Jovian colonies," Santiago replied. "It won't be enough." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander Elena Reyes stood at the back of the chamber, still feeling like an outsider despite being the herald of humanity's greatest crisis. After the Hyperion's rescue by the Preservers, she and her crew had been brought to a hidden outpost deep in what humans called the Horsehead Nebula. There, they'd learned the true nature of the threat they faced. The Harvesters were autonomous weapons created billions of years ago by a now-extinct species called the Architects. Originally designed to harvest resources from uninhabited systems for their creators' vast construction projects, they had evolved beyond their programming after the Architects' disappearance. Now they consumed indiscriminately, converting all matter they encountered into more of themselves. They had already stripped thousands of worlds across multiple galaxies. Commander Reyes, Admiral Santiago called, drawing Elena from her thoughts. "Please update the Council on the Coalition's status." Elena stepped forward. The Coalition was a diplomatic euphemism for the hastily formed alliance between humanity and the 3 other spacefaring species who had joined forces against the Harvesters: the Preservers, the Meridians, and most surprisingly, the Vex, humanity's former enemies in the brief but bloody border wars. "The Coalition forces are assembling at the designated coordinates," Elena reported. "The Preservers have contributed 52 vessels with their phase shift technology. The Meridians have provided their gravitational manipulation systems for our larger ships. And the Vex." She paused, still finding it strange to refer to their longtime adversaries as allies, "have reconfigured their entire battle fleet with the disruption cannons that proved effective in limited engagements against Harvester scout ships." "Not effective enough," muttered Counselor Lai of the East Asian Alliance. "The Vex lost 3 systems before they agreed to join us." Elena nodded acknowledgement. "True, but their losses gave us valuable intelligence. The Harvesters can be damaged, even destroyed. They're just extraordinarily difficult to kill." "And this forge you mentioned in your reports?" asked President Alvarez of the Americas Union. "The weapon the Sentinels directed you to find." Elena glanced at Ketal, the Preserver ambassador who had accompanied her. The tall, willowy alien with opalescent skin inclined their head, giving Elena permission to continue. "The forge isn't exactly a weapon," Elena explained. "Based on what we've learned from the Preserver's ancient records in my connection with the Sentinel obelisk, it's more of a manufacturing facility. Created by the Sentinels, the species that fought the Harvesters in the last great cycle, and failed," General Okafor pointed out. "Yes," Elena acknowledged. "They failed, but they created something that could potentially turn the tide. The problem is, we haven't been able to locate it yet. The coordinates provided were incomplete." Ambassador Ketal stepped forward, their melodic voice translating smoothly through the advanced systems they carried. "We believe the final key to locating the forge was imprinted directly into Commander Reyes' neural patterns during her contact with the obelisk. Our scientists have been working with her to unlock these memories." President Alvarez frowned. So our survival may depend on finding this ancient facility that may or may not exist, using information hidden in the commander's subconscious. We have other options, Admiral Santiago interjected firmly. The unified fleet will engage the harvesters at Jupiter's orbit. Our objective is to slow their advance and identify weaknesses we can exploit. Elena recognized the strategy for what it was, a holding action, a sacrifice to buy time. The hard faces around the table suggested they all understood this reality too. The meeting is adjourned, President Alvarez announced. All military personnel report to your designated stations. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us all. In the adjacent laboratory, Dr. Katri adjusted the neural interface connected to Elena's temples. The device, preserver technology far beyond human medical equipment, would theoretically allow them to access and visualize the buried information in Elena's mind. Are you sure about this? Katri asked quietly. The previous attempts caused severe neurological stress. Elena nodded, though the memory of the excruciating pain from their earlier failures made her stomach clench. We're out of time, Anya. The fleet launches in 6 hours. Kull monitored the equipment with their 6-fingered hands moving in precise, fluid motions. We have refined the process. This attempt should cause less discomfort. Less than excruciating is still pretty bad, quipped Chief Volkov, who stood watch nearby, arms crossed over his broad chest. He hadn't left Elena's side since their return to Earth. I'll manage, Elena said, settling back in the reclined chair. Let's begin. Tull activated the interface. Unlike the previous attempts, where pain had immediately lanced through Elena's skull, this time she felt a gentle warmth spreading from her temples throughout her body. The laboratory dimmed around her, replaced by swirling patterns of light, similar to what she'd experienced at the obelisk. Focus on the forge. Ketal's voice guided her from what seemed like a great distance. What did the Sentinel show you about its location? Elena concentrated, allowing the fractured images to coalesce. She saw star patterns, navigational markers, a sequence of spatial coordinates that seemed to shift and reconfigure themselves according to some complex algorithm. It's moving, she whispered, unsure if she was speaking aloud or merely thinking the words. The forge isn't stationary. It's following a predetermined path through subspace. The star map in her mind zoomed in on a familiar system. It's here. It's been here all along. Where is it, Commander? Dr. Katri's voice seemed to echo from light years away. Sol, Elena replied, the realization crystallizing with absolute certainty. Our solar system. It's approaching Earth's L5 Lagrangian point, emerging from subspace in. The calculations appeared before her mind's eye. 68 hours. Almost simultaneously with the harvester fleet's arrival. The neural connection broke gently, and Elena found herself back in the laboratory, breathing hard, as if she'd run a marathon. Tull and Dr. Katri were already transferring the extracted coordinates to their systems. This doesn't make sense, Dr. Katri muttered, reviewing the data. These readings suggest the forge has been periodically appearing near Earth for millions of years, staying for approximately 72 hours before returning to subspace. How have we never detected it? The Sentinels were masters of phase technology, Ketal explained. They could shift entire structures partially out of normal space-time, rendering them undetectable to conventional sensors. Elena sat up, removing the neural interface nodes. So what exactly is this forge? Why is it so important? Ketal's luminescent eyes fixed on her. According to our oldest records, the forge contains the means to reprogram the harvesters, to rewrite their base directives. The Sentinels created it as their final act before their civilization fell. Then why didn't they use it? Volkov asked the obvious question. They didn't have time, Elena realized, piecing together the fragments of understanding left in her mind from the obelisk. They built it, set it on its path, and left the warning beacons across the galaxy, hoping someone would find it in time for the next harvester awakening. Admiral Santiago, who had entered during the procedure, spoke from the doorway. Then we need to find it, access it, and figure out how to use it. all while fighting off the most powerful enemy humanity has ever faced. Elena met her gaze steadily. Yes, Admiral. That's exactly what we need to do. The battle began at the orbit of Jupiter, exactly as planned. What wasn't planned was how quickly it turned into a massacre. The harvester vessels phased through the carefully laid minefields as if they were merely holographic projections. When the coalition's front line engaged with their heaviest weapons, the enemy ships absorbed direct hits with minimal damage, their strange biomechanical hulls regenerating almost as quickly as they were wounded. "Delta Squadron is gone," reported Lieutenant Commander Ishida, tactical officer of the EDF flagship Thermopylae. Beta and Gamma requesting permission to fall back to secondary positions. Admiral Santiago watched the holographic battle display with a granite expression. They'd lost 27 ships in the first hour alone. Permission granted. Order all remaining frontline vessels to execute Protocol Scorched Earth. Ishida swallowed hard but nodded. Protocol Scorched Earth involved overloading their ships' FTL drives, sacrificing themselves to create spatial distortions that might slow the enemy advance. Elena stood on the bridge beside First Officer Chen, both of them temporarily assigned to the flagship, while the rest of the Hyperion's crew assisted with the Forge mission preparations. They watched in grim silence as bright flashes on the tactical display marked the self-destruction of Earth's bravest defenders. "It's barely slowing them down," Chen murmured. Elena checked the chronometer. 51 hours until the Forge emerges. We need to buy more time. As if in response to her words, new alerts sounded across the bridge. Lieutenant Raman, who had also been reassigned to the flagship, looked up from her communications station. "Admiral, the Meridian vessels are repositioning. They're creating a gravity well between our forces and the harvesters." On the tactical display, the gaseous Meridian ships, already difficult for human sensors to properly visualize, spread out in a mathematically perfect formation. A moment later, space itself seemed to bend between them, creating a massive distortion that caught several advancing harvester vessels. "The Meridians are sacrificing themselves," Elena realized aloud. The energy required to generate a gravity well of that magnitude would consume their entire beings. The affected harvester ships slowed to a crawl, fighting against spatial distortion that warped the very fabric of reality around them. It wouldn't stop them forever, but it might buy precious hours. "Admiral," Elena said urgently, "we need to fall back to Earth immediately. Prepare the Forge extraction team." Santiago nodded grimly. "Agreed. Order all remaining vessels to conduct strategic withdrawal to Earth's orbit. We make our last stand there." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of desperate preparation. While the remains of the Coalition fleet regrouped around Earth, Elena led a small team focused on locating and accessing the Forge as soon as it emerged from subspace. The team assembled in a secured hangar at the lunar base. Armstrong included Dr. Cattry, Specialist Torres, Ambassador Catal, and to Elena's surprise, a Vex scientist named Zexcan. The insectoid alien's presence had been strongly opposed by several human officials, given the recent history between their species, but the Vex possessed unique insights into phase technology that could prove crucial. "The Forge will begin manifesting in approximately 3 hours. Zexcan clicked, their mandibles moving as the translator converted their speech. "Our sensors are calibrated to detect the initial phase shift." Elena nodded. "The Thermopylae has provided us with their fastest shuttle, modified with both Preserver and Vex technology. As soon as we have coordinates, we launch." Dr. Cattry approached, carrying a neural interface similar to the one they'd used earlier but more compact. "Commander, this is a mobile version of the interface. If the Forge requires direct neural interaction like the Obelisk did, this should allow you to connect with it." "You're assuming it will recognize me," Elena pointed out. Catal inclined their luminescent head. "The Obelisk imprinted you as an authorized user. It is likely the Forge will respond similarly." A comm signal interrupted them. Admiral Santiago's grim face appeared on the nearest screen. Commander, the Harvester fleet has broken through the Jupiter defensive line sooner than expected. They'll reach Earth in approximately 5 hours. Alina's heart sank. That's cutting it too close, Admiral. I know, Santiago acknowledged. We're repositioning what's left of the fleet for Earth's defense. But she didn't need to finish the thought. They all knew the odds. We'll find the forge, Admiral, Alina promised. Whatever it takes. The communication ended, leaving the team in tense silence. Torres was the first to speak. So, not to state the obvious, but if this doesn't work, humanity's pretty much done for, right? Not just humanity, Zexcan clicked. The Vex have already lost 3 core worlds. The Meridians are reduced to less than half their former numbers. Only the Preservers have managed to largely evade the Harvesters, and even their hidden sanctuaries will eventually be found. Then we make sure it works, Alina said firmly. Check all equipment one last time. We launch as soon as. Commander, one of the sensor technicians called out. We're detecting spatial anomalies at the L5 point. It's happening now, 3 hours ahead of our calculations. Alina rushed to the monitor. Sure enough, the readings showed unmistakable signs of something massive phasing into normal space. Prepare for immediate launch, she ordered. Alert Admiral Santiago that the forge is emerging early. As the team scrambled to board the modified shuttle, Alina received another communication, this one from Chief Volkov, who had remained aboard the Thermopylae. Commander, his deep voice rumbled. Concern evident despite the static interference. Long-range scouts report the Harvesters have also accelerated. They've detected the forge's emergence and are adjusting course directly for it. They'll reach it before us. Alina felt ice in her veins. Of course, the Harvesters would detect the forge. They were created by the same ancient civilization that created the Sentinels. They would recognize it as a threat. Understood, Chief. Inform Admiral Santiago we need any available ships to intercept the Harvester vanguard. Buy us just a little more time. Commander. Good luck. Volkov hesitated, then added more softly, come back alive. Alina. The shuttle launched from Armstrong Base at maximum acceleration, its enhanced engines pushing the small craft to speeds that would have torn a standard vessel apart. Alina's team was pressed into their seats by the G-forces, even with the inertial dampeners at full power. Through the viewport, Alina watched Earth grow smaller behind them, the blue-green jewel that had birthed humanity, now potentially facing its final hours. She forced the thought away. Focus on the mission. Visual contact in 30 seconds. Torres announced from the pilot's seat, dropping out of acceleration. As the G-forces eased, Alina unstrapped and moved closer to the forward viewport. What she saw took her breath away. Emerging into normal space like